Grace died this morning. I hadn't seen her for over 20 years. The previous evening, she'd been in a car accident on the Corniche above Monaco. The radio talked of a love story between a queen of Hollywood and her Prince Charming. The taxi driver taking me to work asked me, who is Grace Kelly?
It was their wish.
Wives never like their husbands talking to others. Hospital spokesman.
All day long, I listened out for news coming from France. I dug out a few yellowing old photos. To this day, Grace's wedding remains the most wonderful memory of my journalistic career.
Former Grace Kelly died of multiple injuries suffered in an automobile accident on Monday.
It was as I got home and switched on the radio that I found out she was dead. I hadn't seen her since she married the prince on April the 19th, 1956. She died at the age of 53.
I'm sending up a plain flat silver. Then I had two Porsches 20 blocks apart. Then I had to have a cocktail with Leland and Slim Haywood for trying to get us in. Sure what you consider it. But if you don't stop it, I'm getting out of here.
My name is Jinx. I live in New York. I was a TV reporter. On the morning of April the 4th, 1956, I was at New York Port's Pier 84 for the press conference given by Grace Kelly before her wedding. I was privileged to be one of the journalists invited aboard the liner which was to take her across to Europe and into legend. In the middle of the crowd, Grace recognized me. She walked across to me and smiled. I was intrigued by this marriage. Maybe I could squeeze a little more information out of her. Suddenly, the television cameras started rolling. Her smile disappeared, and her expression became serious. And Grace turned into the princess she was to become. I knew her better than anyone else there, so I asked the first question.
I wonder, Grace, if at this moment of excitement and some slight confusion, if you have any special thoughts about leaving the States, about leaving your country and going on to this new life for you.
Well, Jinx, as I said before, just getting married is a very big step for any girl, and of course, I have a great many feelings about that, and it's a very exciting thing, and I'm very, very happy. Of course, I'm a little sad to be...
Why would a star at the height of her fame leave her family and friends in order to marry a man she barely knew? A man dubbed by the press the sad Prince of Monaco. Maybe there were clues to be found back in the fall of 1947, when she left her home in Philadelphia. Grace had just been accepted into the New York Academy of Dramatic Art. She was the first member of her family to dare to stand up to her father, the rich and authoritarian construction entrepreneur, John Kelly. Yet he didn't stand in his daughter's way. It was Grace's own sisters who doubted that her dreams of becoming an actress could withstand the reality of living in New York City. Dressed in tweed, a hat and veil, elegant shoes and white gloves, Grace moved into a boarding house for young ladies, the Barbizon Hotel. Is this image of a sensible young girl a true reflection of the life she led in New York? I'm afraid I have no scandalous revelations to spring on you. What could possibly have gone on? Grace was 18 years old. She just wasn't the sort to get up to mischief. Good presentation, good presence, expressive and full of imagination. Thus was the appraisal of her drama teacher. She had every reason then to feel confident about the future.
I can't fit in here, you can't fit in there. I mean, according to you, people should be born and then die on the same spot.
Grace was tall, with beautiful shoulders and a young girl's bosom. She started working as a fashion model. Earning her own money was a step on the way to becoming independent. She made $15 a session for advertising beauty creams and electrical goods. She was the perfect girl next door, the one that thousands of GIs, tired of dusky beauties in far-off lands, hoped to marry. I met her for the first time at a casting call. We needed a model for a hat shoot. That's me, there. I chose her. At the time, she was just 20. Being older than her, I took her under my wing. Grace and I became friends. I liked her vitality and honesty. I introduced her to New York nightlife and jazz, to my friends and the world of television. But each weekend back at her family home, it was always her father, she told me, who chose her potential suitors. I remember that Grace made neither a rapid nor an easy start in the business. She went for auditions, but her height was a drawback, as she was judged to be too tall for her male counterparts. I was there for her Broadway debut, for her first TV appearances, but I had no inkling of what her destiny would hold. I never saw Grace cry, never even saw her looking sad. Appearances were everything to her, looking the part and maintaining decorum. But on April the 4th, 1956, standing at her side, I shared with her a moment of true solemnity. Dressed in a light grey silk outfit with a small white hat and long beige gloves, Grace waved to the crowd with all the self-control of the princess she was soon to become. Was this the role she really wanted? The star seemed to be bidding farewell to her public. I felt her gradually slipping away from America. In the summer of 1951, Grace quit Broadway, and we saw much less of each other. She was now knocking on the door of Hollywood, where a promising career beckoned. She was chosen by Gary Cooper to play the beautiful, innocent, and refined heroine of High Noon. Remember that plaintive, haunting melody?
I mean it. If you won't go with me now, I'll be on that train at least.
Every second, a man's life ticked away. Never have so few moments held such excitement.
On the film's release, Alfred Hitchcock exclaimed, "She's my heroine." To the director, she was the perfect blank page on which each and every moviegoer could paint the colors of his own desires. Not without a certain degree of hypocrisy, the public latched onto her as a safer image of womanhood than that offered by Marilyn Monroe, whose audacity made prudish America uneasy. Her pliability in Hitchcock's hands, her readiness to incarnate his fantasies, should not blind us to her determination elsewhere. Grace knew what she wanted and was not averse to threatening the bigwigs at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in order to get her own way. Hitchcock filmed her like an ice cube, cold and distant. But when she fell into an embrace with her leading man, well, judge for yourselves. They all praised her sense of humor and attentiveness when she acted opposite them, qualities which I too had found so endearing.
The New York Daily Mirror wrote, "It holds your attention like a vice."
When Grace was asked questions about herself, she wouldn't reply. Being a star in Hollywood was no easy matter. She enjoyed the company of men of a certain age. Rumors in the scandal sheets reached me in New York. Grace left them to it. The studio's press attachés grew desperate and started inventing stories involving legendary stars, jilted wives, and jealous partners. Grace started to hate Hollywood. Maybe she already wanted to leave. One man could have extricated her from the grip of MGM, the famous couturier Oleg Cassini. He had recently divorced Jean Turney, another great Hollywood star. But the very Catholic Kelly family expected a more conventional marriage partner for their Grace. It was probably while filming Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief that Grace's destiny was set on its definitive course. Oleg Cassini went with her on location, and she took to introducing him as her fiancé, thereby confirming her wish to marry him, a wish that Grace's father firmly opposed. During the shooting of the legendary scene on the Corniche over Monte Carlo, Grace took time between two clinches to comment on the magnificent garden spread out beneath her.
Strong grip, the kind a burglar needs.
Who do those marvelous gardens belong to, she asked. To Prince Rainier, she was told. I'd love to visit them.
That's why you came out here, isn't it?
Grace left Los Angeles for New York. Depressed and exhausted after making 6 films in the space of 2 years, she fled the scandal sheets, which were full of her breakup with Oleg Cassini, the last concession she was to make to her father. She stopped making movies. MGM tore up her contract because she refused every film she was offered. At this point, was she already prepared to split with Hollywood for good and start a new life? Spring arrived early in 1955, as all the Hollywood stars turned up for the Academy Awards ceremony. Grace had been nominated for her role as an unhappy wife, abandoned by an alcoholic husband. If you're wondering why she isn't to be seen on any of this newsreel footage, it's because no one believed she had a chance of winning. Her old friend William Holden tore open the envelope.
Grace Kelly for the country.
She'd won. Would she now thank Hollywood for making her its queen?
The thrill of this moment keeps me from saying what I really feel. I can only say thank you with all my heart to all who made this possible for me. Thank you.
At Romanoff's after the ceremony, Grace was still crying with joy. Never before had a young actress won an Oscar after making so few films. It was a fitting revenge on her producers. Her high standards and determination had won out. What would she now do with her victory? What dreams were left to realize? At midnight, the emotion having worn off, she took her leave, alone, in the official car supplied for the Best Actress. Grace went to the Bahamas on vacation with her sister and the photographer Howell Conant. Howell took some Kodachrome snapshots, capturing her in all her natural beauty. Talking to some reporters, she declared, "I would like to get married and have children." Back in Hollywood, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer offered her the chance to represent American cinema at the Cannes Film Festival. Perhaps in memory of the sumptuous gardens she'd seen in Monaco, Grace accepted. On April the 26th, 1955, she arrived on the Côte d'Azur. That year, the festival was paying homage to Brigitte Bardot. Sophia Loren, and Gina Lollobrigida. In Cannes, Grace met up with an old friend from Hollywood, Jean-Pierre Aumont. The two were very close and didn't try to hide the fact from photographers. Grace appreciated the French actor's charm, and he seemed to enjoy her company. As far as the press was concerned, this was the major event of the 1955 Cannes Film Festival. But was it? In fact, the journalist should have sat up and taken notice of another event entirely. On May the 6th, 1955, at 1:30 p.m., at the bequest of the magazine Paris Match, Grace agreed to do a photo shoot with Prince Rainier of Monaco. The encounter was to take place in the palace gardens. I've read the account of this encounter so many times. The rush there in MGM's convertible, the quickly gobbled sandwich, the prince's lateness, and Grace in a flower-patterned dress of black, pink, and green silk, being shown around the palace as she patiently waited. At last Rainier arrived, and without standing on ceremony, he showed her around the garden she had so admired from the Corniche 1 year previously.
Have you ever had a better offer in your whole life? One with everything. How's your leg?
It hurts a little.
And your stomach?
Empty as a football.
You've got to tell me about the new love.
I just feel I'm too active.
Anything else bothering you?
Oh, she just has to be.
And pay attention to me. Likes where his wife welcomes him.
I don't look in his wife's bedroom all day.
You endure to that.
I'm afraid it's
was with me.
They were together for less than an hour. 6 months later, they would be engaged.
When am I going to see you again?
Not for a long time.
Leaving the palace, Grace whispered, "He's charming, quite charming." She returned to the United States in late May 1955 and agreed to play a princess in a new movie. A princess. Her stay in Cannes had got the gossip columnists excited again. Who was this lover in whose company she was so often seen?
Good morning, Miss Kelly. This is a beautiful day here in New York. I'm sure that all my viewers would be very much disappointed if I were not to ask you about your purported romance with Jean-Pierre Omar. Would you like to tell us about that?
Well, all I can say is that Jean-Pierre and I are very good friends. I met him a couple of years ago in New York, and I was very happy to see him again at Cannes.
Is there anything serious?
No.
Do you have any plans at all for marriage or anything of that kind?
No, I have no plans.
Was her discomfiture due to genuine embarrassment or to a joy she was struggling hard to keep hidden? After months of conflict, MGM started to treat its star with consideration, and she too began to accede to the studio's demands. The Swan with Alec Guinness was shot in an atmosphere of relaxed good humor. Grace was charming to everyone, without having to force it. Did she already have an inkling that it would all too soon come to an end? The film crew took over a Renaissance chateau. She had always enjoyed fairy tales, stories about sleeping beauties who end up as princesses.
My dear child, this is the one thing, the one opportunity that all your life I've been praying for you to become a queen.
Would this opportunity come from Monaco? Nobody seemed to recall that Prince Rainier would often go out alone at night to Cannes, Nice or San Remo, looking for a movie theater that was showing his favorite film, To Catch a Thief.
A very strong grip, the kind a burglar needs.
Sitting alone in the dark, with Grace up there on the screen, his mind was made up. That's her, he told himself. That is her. He decided to marry her.
Hear what you do for a living. I wanted to. I'd just like to be part of it somehow.
It all happened so quickly. I thought she was still engaged to Oleg Cassini when the news broke. She was going to marry a prince. But what had led up to this? On December the 15th, 1955, Prince Rainier of Monaco arrived in New York, accompanied by Father Tucker, his advisor and confidant. But what was the real purpose of his visit? Facing the press, the prince was cautious and enigmatic, shy even.
Rumors linking you with virtually everybody, and the latest one is with Grace Kelly. Would you comment on that for us?
No, I just met Grace Kelly. She came to the palace when she was at Cannes for the festival, and that's all.
Well, there are many stories that you're actively seeking a wife. Would you care to comment on that?
No, I'm not. That you can misquote.
I see. If you were to marry, what kind of a girl do you have in mind?
I don't know. The best.
What is your estimation of the best?
Getting closer to him.
Yes, to the point.
Well, I don't know. She has to have a lot of qualities because I have a horrible character.
Oh.
Rainier added that she would also have to be beautiful, intelligent, and kind. Who could this mysterious fiancé be? Grace must surely have recognized this delicately sketched portrait, for she was, of course, the betrothed whom the prince had in mind. Grace and Rainier met again on Christmas Day in Philadelphia. Up until then, they had spent only half an hour in each other's company, the previous May in Monaco. It was the prince's confidant, Father Tucker, who had engineered this new meeting. How had he gone about it? Who made the first move, he or she? I heard about letters Rainier had sent Grace, restrained at first, but becoming increasingly intimate and frequent. And the nighttime phone calls, shy, then more open, eventually becoming intimate too. Right up until Philadelphia, when the young couple revealed to the press that they were engaged to be married.
That's my next assignment.
But then I couldn't take my eyes off them. I know you go home, get some sleep, huh? Good night.
The announcement was made on January the 6th, 1956, during a charity ball at the Waldorf Astoria. The question on everyone's lips was, why him? Why her? At this soiree, Grace wore a Dior dress decorated with a white lily, a pearl necklace, and long gloves that hid her engagement ring. What nobody knew was that Rainier had bought this double ring set with rubies and diamonds the previous October. For whom? What did they talk about at this event, during which they spent every moment gazing into each other's eyes? Did Rainier remind her of the scent of jasmine in the gardens at Monaco? But watch carefully. Just like at their wedding, at no point did they actually kiss. At the request of the photographers, the Kellys agreed to put on a more intimate show at the family home. Their home was invaded by reporters. It was a total disaster, and the beginning of a tumultuous relationship between the press and the Rainiers. A kiss, Your Highness. Was it love at first sight, Your Highness? Smile, Your Highness. The prince's expression clearly shows the embarrassment he felt. The couple held hands like a pair of teenagers. Grace, however, applied herself to the task in hand.
Needless to say, I'm very, very happy.
Miss Kelly, when is the wedding going to be?
We haven't planned the exact date as
Your Highness, when you arrived at the very thing that you denied, were you being cautious or didn't you know about it at the time?
No, I was very sincere. I didn't know a thing about it.
This is a surprise to you then?
Yes, as much as it is to you, I suppose.
Miss Kelly?
And is it a surprise to you, Miss Kelly?
Yes.
That makes him the Prince Charming, doesn't it?
To the journalists, this idyllic romance seemed to promise juicy stories for decades to come. Grace's parents were probably keen to know a little more about their future son-in-law. Was he solvent? Was he after their money? What in fact was the Principality of Monaco? Rainier was a Catholic, like the Kellys. But despite its geographical proximity to the Vatican, the Principality lived off the proceeds of gambling, the casino, roulette and backgammon. He was, in fact, a very good catch. Mrs. Kelly must have been very proud to be marrying off her little girl, the daughter of a man who made bricks for skyscrapers, to a genuine Prince Charming. Grace died this morning. Today, the press has been paying homage. Every report I hear brings the memories flooding back. On the crossing from New York to Monaco, she confided in me. In Hollywood, I've been getting to make up at 7 in the morning. 1 hour earlier than last year. Joan Crawford and Betty Davis are there at 6 a.m., and others whose wrinkles are really starting to show get there at 4. I know I'll have to keep getting up earlier and earlier just to be presentable in front of the camera. she confessed that Hollywood no longer held any attraction for her, that it was a false paradise full of the depressed, the neurotic and alcoholics, and that getting married was by far the better option. By marrying a prince, then, was she realizing a secret dream? To live her life in a fabulous decor which, unlike those in Hollywood, wouldn't be dismantled once the shooting was over. Because with the best will in the world, could anyone imagine Grace Kelly married to a cowboy from a Hollywood Western?
Clear to take the runway for a takeoff.
On January the 17th, Grace was back in Los Angeles. The shooting of High Society was due to begin the next day. These would be her last weeks in Hollywood. Every avenue, every house reminded her of a film she'd made here. Some small joy, the odd disappointment. But on the whole, she was leaving the studios without regret. Rainier was pressed for time. His duties would not wait. The business was swiftly concluded, the dowry agreed on, and the marriage contract signed, and he boarded ship. The principality breathed a sigh of relief on hearing the news of the engagement. To the prince's subjects, Grace was not only a mother for his heirs, but also a great star who would make them the envy of the whole world.
From the equator.
During the shooting, she insisted on wearing the prince's engagement ring. The jewelry would protect her from gossip while giving her the strength to bear the endless questions and jokes about Monaco's minuscule dimensions.
She was fascinated with everything I did.
You could have become a serious composer or a diplomat or anything you wanted to be. And what have you become? A Jew.
Grace, the star. But also now, a princess. As if one could protect her from the dangers faced by the other. Grace Kelly's acting career ended with a song, watched by a film crew visibly moved by the importance of this moment. Later in Monaco, when in a melancholy mood, she would listen repeatedly to this duet. The date of her departure approached. But MGM didn't intend to forego its rights over Grace so easily. They saw this wedding as a major production, a new kind of fairy tale with the prince and princess as the leading couple. The princess would have duties that necessitated a serious new wardrobe. No more faded jeans and men's Oxford shirts she was so fond of. She scoured the most stylish stores in Los Angeles and New York for these little bits and bobs that would cause a sensation in Europe. Her long sand-colored coat cost $7,000, and she spent $25,000 on 6 cocktail dresses, 4 summer dresses, 2 ball gowns, several autumn coats, and a dozen hats. With one exception, all her outfits were designed by American couturiers. The studio footed the bill, so it had every intention of choosing the cast, the caterers, and the guests. MGM entrusted Grace's wedding dress to the famous Hollywood costumier Helen Rose, an ivory silk dress decorated with antique Brussels lace and embellished with 1,000 pearls.
She had on the most divine Italian handprint.
Oh, Italian.
Oh,
The Oscar winner of 1955 was given the job of presenting the following year's Academy Award for Best Actor. A chance for her to bid a final farewell to Hollywood. William Holden, Frank Sinatra, Jean-Pierre Aumont, all the men of her life were there to congratulate her, and in most cases, say goodbye. Everything was fine then. What was she feeling at this moment? Relief that she was no longer part of this bonfire of the vanities. She still looked the part, but was already somehow different. Then she left for Philadelphia. Henceforth, she was the prince's fiancée. In town, as on the big screen, she had a certain standing to maintain. Easter, she accompanied her parents to church through a barrage of photographers. But it was Grace who took pride of place. She had cast off Mr. Kelly's burdensome protection. Some would claim that it was just a marriage of convenience and not a fairy tale romance at all, that Grace was no more than a mail-order bride. Grace would give the lie to this notion. Then it was time to leave. She was to all appearances a happy woman as she stood leaning on the rail of the Constitution, wreathed in fog on this first day of the crossing. Grace had known many men, of course, but this love story was like nothing she had previously experienced, and this new feeling scared her. What would her new life in Monaco be like? On the morning of the second day, the princess-to-be had duties to attend to. Nothing was left to chance. MGM was in charge of promoting the great event, and 100 reporters were waiting for Grace. They had 10 minutes in which to take their photos. Grace dreaded the aggressive intrusion of the cameras, which continually wanted more and more of her, but she played along with good humor. All their photos looked the same, though. The only truly intimate shots were those taken by her old friend Howell Conant. Howell had known her for years, and throughout her life, it was he who took the truest photographs of Grace. As for me, I was able to jot down a few confidences during what for me were now thrilling encounters. I was planning on writing a book about her early life, and Grace spoke freely. Yet she said nothing about the prince, nor about their love. She spoke of her sister who mothered her, of her nephews who looked forward to seeing the palace's spear-bearers, of her parents' happiness. "And what about your own happiness, Grace?" I asked her. She smiled shyly, but didn't reply. Monaco was waiting for its princess. The bosses at MGM wanted to exploit the wedding in their own interests. For the occasion, The film of the ceremony would deck itself out in Hollywood color. The movie cameras would glorify the old palace and immortalize the decor of Grace's final production. So Rainier had the whole principality freshened up. The wedding of the century was already being advertised on American screens. Aboard the Constitution, the early April evenings were chilly, but the afternoons bright and sunny. Would Grace be giving up acting for good? The journalists were continually harassing her on this point, but she always avoided giving a clear answer. Rainier had declared, "No more movies for Miss Kelly." When I too asked her, she replied, "If that is his wish, then that is how it shall be." Well, if that isn't love. All told, it was a very happy crossing. Grace, in rope-soled sandals and silk scarf, strolled with her older sister Peggy. She was making the most of her last family vacation. Usually sitting somewhere off to one side, her father would pore over the protocol for the upcoming ceremony, while her mother kept an eye on the family. The journalists would remember 5 wild parties from their time on board. But in Grace's presence, the atmosphere was something else entirely. Quiet, cozy, bathed in human warmth and conviviality. She looked like she couldn't possibly be any happier, and every turn of the propeller brought her closer to the source of her joy. On April the 12th, 1956, the ship was at last in sight of Monte Carlo, and Grace could have had no inkling that she was about to endure the toughest week of her life. At 6:30 in the morning, Rainier went aboard his yacht, the Diogeventi II. Grace cried out, "I can see him," and waved. Rainier waved back, and Grace burst out laughing. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's cameras found the best spots. The world is so much more beautiful in Technicolor. Grace was wearing a navy blue coat, white gloves, and a wide-brimmed hat. Rainier took his fiancée's hand in his. But there was no kiss, no embrace. Perhaps the prince was intimidated by the crowds. This marriage reawakened the slumbering population of Monaco, all the old Genovese and Piedmontese families that had settled on this rock centuries ago. The Mignoni, the Oberto, the Montelestelli, the Torsello and the Brezzo. From their windows, the people could see their princess sent to the principality. But no one could see her face, deep in the shadow of her wide-brimmed hat. That first day came to an end. The prince returned to his villa at Cap Ferrat, leaving his palace to Grace and her family. We can only hope that both Grace and Rainier slept well that night, because the days to follow were to prove an absolute nightmare. In fact, it was such a painful ordeal that it would be many months before they could bear to look at the wedding photos. Grace was not yet 27 years old. Her expression was that of a young girl, striving valiantly to be up to the task in hand. But after 4 days in the Principality, she was exhausted. Ministers, ambassadors, local worthies, chamberlains, she was spared none of these. Everyone was watching for the first sign that she was weakening. Would the American actress excel in her role as Princess of Monaco? As for the prince, he was starting to show signs of nerves. His exasperation with the press was growing daily. There was a succession of festivities, an evening sponsored by the Principality's merchants, a party thrown by Aristotle Onassis, a Provençal serenade. Invitations to these events were traded on the black market, and celebrities of the jet set were overlooked. Hollywood gossip columnists Luella Parson and Elsa Maxwell, who'd been left out of the fun, stated that in any case, they wouldn't have gone along to such trivial events. Journalists had come from all over the world, but there was no infrastructure to accommodate them. No taxis, no automatic telephone exchange. They could neither work nor find anywhere to sleep. Except for at the odd charity gala or during the Monaco Grand Prix, the Principality wasn't used to such media coverage. Never having had to manage such a circus, it was totally swamped.
Ici Raymond Martillac qui vous parle de Monte-Carlo. Hier soir, le premier gala au Sporting Club d'hiver n'alla pas, disons, sans quelques bousculades entre certains membres de la presse et la police. Mais il faut reconnaître qu'on ne facilite pas beaucoup la tâche des journalistes.
So MGM took things in hand. It was high time, because the spectacle provided by the press was starting to steal the show from the wedding. It was suggested to the prince that he agree to a daily session with the photographers. Taking turns, the reporters were allowed in to watch the rehearsals for the wedding ceremony. I was one of them, and saw Grace take her first steps in the cathedral. Tense behind the smiles, and having lost so much weight that her wedding dress needed readjusting, she wore dark glasses to hide the shadows under her eyes. Paying close attention to the demands of protocol, Grace worked on the details of the final scene, the farewell. In the afternoons, she shot supplementary scenes for MGM's film of the event, strolling through the galleries of her soon-to-be ancestors. This marriage would make her a duchess 4 times over, 4 times a marchioness, 7 times a countess, and 9 times a baroness. Obeying the prince's instructions, the director took care not to give her too much prominence in these shots, lest it be thought she was continuing her career as a movie actress. But how could Grace on the screen possibly leave us indifferent? Every morning, the prince would send her a gift of a new piece of jewelry. On April the 18th, she woke to find a 3-row diamond necklace by her bedside. For at 11 that morning, in the throne room, the destiny of Grace Patricia Kelly would take on a rose-tinted hue when the civil wedding ceremony took place. The groom, sweating under the spotlights, looked ill at ease. Grace paid close attention as the registry officer intoned the ancient articles of the Monaco Civil Code. Then she swore love and loyalty to Rainier with the same studious zeal she had accorded to her leading men in Hollywood. The garden party that followed the civil ceremony was attended by over 1,000 guests. For the first time, the people of Monaco were able to get close to Grace. The newlyweds struggled to make their way through the throng of their subjects. I remember she was wearing a tea-pink dress of Alençon lace with a Claudine collar and three-quarter sleeves. Maybe she was thinking, only another 24 hours to go. For the gala evening at the opera, celebrities and crowned heads vied to be the most elegant. Dior dresses in white satin, cloaks embroidered in gold, long gowns of pink lace, muslin bodices under shantung capes. Grace made her appearance in a Lanvin dress of white organdy with pearls and a diamond tiara. The only one of her dresses designed by a French couturier. Shortly before midnight, like Cinderella, she returned to her bedroom in the palace, while Rainier went to sleep in his villa at Cap Ferrat. The next day, April the 19th at 10:30, the Eurovision cameras began to broadcast the religious ceremony. Mild spring sunshine welcomed Grace. As her arm through her father's and head held high, she slid along, unmoved or overcome, past the astonished gaze of the crowd. It was almost a year to the day since the young couple had met for the first time.
Rainier, Louis, Henri, Maxence, Bertrand, voulez-vous prendre pour légitime épouse Grace Patricia, ici présente, selon le rite de notre mère la Sainte Église. Grace Patricia, voulez-vous prendre pour légitime époux Rainier, Louis, Henri, Maxence, Bertrand, ici présent, selon le rite de notre mère la Sainte Église.
When it was her turn to say, "I do," her voice didn't quaver. Sitting behind Rainier, did Father Tucker, who'd worked so hard to bring this marriage about, feel the satisfaction of a job well done? I gave her a little wave, but she didn't react. She was a princess now. Imperceptibly, Grace was moving away from her past. I would never see her again. From then on, all I would know of her joys and sorrows would be what I read in the papers. The book I was going to write would begin with this question: why did she marry Rainier? When on the last page I wrote the words, "The End," I had finally understood. Whenever I watch one of her old films on television, I wonder which role suited her best, in which she was the most fulfilled. That of the icy Hitchcockian lover, or that of the warm-hearted princess who was being mourned this morning by the whole of Monaco.